Welcome to the Inside Out Money Podcast.
Can't even recognize this place. Too many pieces of our past mistakes.
Hi, I'm Maggie, and I believe real change starts from the inside out. So let's work together to improve our money and our lives from the inside out. We will explore all things money and our relationship with it. Join me each week with a rotating set of co-hosts, friends, and interviews. Let's jump in.
It's time, we going round and round and round and round and round.
Good morning, Liz.
Good morning, Maggie. You have a big smile on your face.
I was going to say it's snowing in Atlanta.
Oh my
It's a big deal.
gosh. Are you okay?
I'm okay right now, but I may be snowed in for a few days.
Oh, that's kind of nice to get snowed in. Do you like
Yeah.
it, Belle? Is it pretty?
Yeah, we recorded this first thing in the morning, but no joke, when we're done recording, I'm going to put on a pair of snowboarding pants and snow boots that I own that I wear about once every 5 to 10 years. And I'm going to go like walk in the snow. I'm really excited.
It's so quiet and peaceful
Yeah.
when
and
it's snowing
white.
outside. You should do a snow angel too.
Oh, yeah, maybe I will. I'll get
Not till
clothes.
you're coming back in though. Like, 'cause
Yeah.
other's you'll be cold and wet.
Oh, that's a good idea.
I know you don't deal with snow a lot,
I
so
don't,
let me give you.
I need some snow tips.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. That sounds like a really good idea, walking in the snow. Let's talk about some bad idea.
Good segue. So we're going to talk about some money tips you shouldn't do and all the popular financial advice that might actually be costing you and what you should do instead. There's so many tips and financial advice out there from all ends of the earth that will tell you how to manage your money and improve your finances, including this podcast. But we're going to say some of it we think should be ignored, and we want to help you filter out the advice that we think you should not take. And we'll tell
Yeah.
you why and what else we think you should do instead.
It seems like there's both mixed advice online, but also I feel like I've gotten a lot of bad advice from humans saying silly things to my face.
I
Has that been your
agree.
experience?
Yeah, I think there's certain things that come more online versus from humans. I mean, even the online stuff is from a human, I guess. But
Yeah.
there's things about, we'll talk about like renting versus buying and stuff like that. But I feel like that's one that comes from like real people in your life a lot. Like
Yeah.
like you need to own a home, and like that's what, that's how you build wealth and blah blah blah. But yeah, that's true. I think there's a mix of, you could get just as good or just as bad of advice from the internet as you can from like your dad or your uncle,
Not my dad. My dad's really smart. Someone's dad.
Yeah.
Uncles get such a bad rap.
I know. Yeah, they do. I always think when I talk about financial planners, and I'm always like, oh, your dad's friend or your uncle's friend.
Right. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, they do get a bad rap. And uncles are often like the best, because they're fun and
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
like
my
all
uncles
uncles.
are rad. I don't know if I would take financial advice from, oh gosh, any of them now that I'm running through it.
Well, one of my uncles is an accountant, and he's pretty, like, I would say, like financially savvy and frugal. So I would probably take some financial advice from him.
Yeah.
Okay, let's jump in.
Okay.
First one.
Avoiding debt. Avoid debt at all costs. Don't go into debt ever in your whole life.
I'm actually a big fan of avoiding debt where you can. But there is such a thing as, like, you'll hear the term good debt versus bad debt. I think there are, quote, it's good and bad is very subjective to everyone, but there are like good and bad reasons to go into debt, Like a good reason could be you're buying your first home, you are buying a home that you can afford, that's not beyond what you can afford, that's a good interest rate and all of that versus, I'm trying to think of examples of bad debt, but like a car that you can't afford and that's way more than you need and that's putting you into a payment that you can barely make each month.
Yeah.
Or that, credit card debt.
Credit card debt that isn't necessary, right? Sometimes you have to use your credit card for something, but credit card debt to go on a big vacation that you're not going to be able to pay off soon, or to buy gadgets, or just to go shopping for fun that you're not going to be able to pay off.
Wants versus needs, right? And
Right.
I think a lot of people misuse the term need, but All those things you just named were wants, not needs. Not, there's a hole in my roof or my transmission suddenly died and I have an
Right.
emergency and I need to, I don't have the cash. I think in a perfect world, you have an emergency fund. We have an excellent episode on emergency funds that's actually with Liz and I. We'll put a link in the show notes to it. But if you don't and you have a true emergency come up, that's one thing. And you don't,
Yeah.
I mean, especially like high interest credit cards, right? If you can, we'll get into credit cards later, but if there's some debt you want to take on that is at a particularly attractive interest rate, like there's still some things where they offer 0% interest for 12 months or something.
Yeah.
Right. And like, if you can take advantage of that and pay it off in that time period, and you're doing it just to keep more money in your high yield savings account or something else, but you have the money, that's a strategic type of debt that is, you have a very high confidence you're going to pay off and you should know yourself. But in general, if you don't have a good history of taking on debt responsibly, you really should try to avoid debt. I'd say at all costs.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, but there are times it makes sense to use it. I think student loans are a good example. If you know that you're taking out a student loan to get education that's going to put you into a higher paying career, that's going to pay off in the long run. Like that makes perfect sense.
Ooh, can I give an example of where a student loan maybe doesn't make sense?
Yeah, do it.
And I'm only going to call this out because they call this out themselves. So I really like Justin and Haley from the Price Avocado Toast, which is the name of their podcast, and they do financial coaching. They long time ago went to a private college that was very expensive, private college in I think Northern California, to get teaching degrees to become teachers. So they knew they weren't going to make a lot of money with that degree. And they went to a private school that was really expensive and took out like hundreds of thousands of dollars in loans to do that. And that would be an example of it's not a strategic use of debt when you could go to a public school, which would be a public college, which would be significantly less expensive, more financial aid available. Just a lot of different opportunities. And you don't need to go to a non-state school, is my point, to get a teaching degree. It will not give you any additional advantage or higher pay or anything like that.
You're not going to get paid more because you went to a more expensive school.
Yeah. And you'll have the same job prospects regardless of, as a teacher, regardless of which school you went to.
Yeah.
So that would be an example of non-strategic use of debt.
That makes sense. I remember I knew someone who this was before I knew what I was doing. Like you're in your 20s and people are just saying stuff and you're like, oh, really? Okay, is that true? Like, I don't know. And anyways, I knew this woman who was so strong. Oh, I never want to get into debt. And so she wanted to buy a house and she said, I'm going to wait until I can pay for a house in cash. And
that'd be waiting a long time, wouldn't it?
It is waiting. And I don't know. I'm not still in touch with that person, so I don't know what ended up happening. But in some ways, housing prices have gone up so much that you would just always be chasing that balance. Like the prices would go up faster than you could save for it.
Yeah, that would be a good example. And we'll talk about renting versus buying later. But that would be a good example of not the best way, in our opinion, I would say, not the best way to think about debt. Because buying a house that you can afford is at a good interest rate is a good use of debt, in my opinion. Now, buying a house that you can't afford at a time when interest rates are really high and upgrading your house, deciding that now you want to upgrade and rates are 7.5% when you currently have a 3% mortgage, that to me is not a strategic use of debt. It's an unnecessary.
Yeah, I agree.
So wait till a better time if you can.
The moral of the story is that if someone tells you to avoid debt at all costs, there's rarely advice that works in all situations.
Yeah, that's a great point.
So if your uncle at all costs, say, oh, just smile and nod and be like, oh, that's great advice. And then in your head be like, Maggie and Liz told me the truth.
Yeah. Separate side tip is choose your battles when people do give you this bad advice on whether you feel like going down a debate with somebody. Along the same lines of you saying that person was waiting to buy a house until they had all the money. Another piece of financial advice that people sometimes give that I don't think is true is that you can start investing for retirement or saving for your kids' college later. You've got plenty of time.
Yeah.
I don't like this piece of uncle's advice. Poor uncle. We're just kidding about an uncle, but
If you're an uncle, we love you so much.
Yeah.
We're talking about
The bad uncles.
yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, I don't love this advice because, you know, you want to have as much time as you can in the market, and the more you save, the earlier, the better.
That's true. I agreed. I think anybody just casually tossing off the idea that you can start saving later, you have plenty of time, is ignoring a very fundamental tenet of how investing works.
Yeah. And how building wealth works,
Right.
which
And
is
that time
compound
in the market.
interest.
Right.
Yeah.
Compound growth is the most important piece of it.
Yeah.
And I will say, can I offer, it's just like all things. It's all nuanced. It depends on your situation. Because I think sometimes there's been such an explosion and proliferation of personal finance content, and it's so much more available to young people online that there can feel like this pressure, like, oh, if you're in your 20s and you're not already maxing out your
Maxing out,
401k or investing significantly. The investing that I'm doing now is like doing a lot more than the $300 I was putting into my 401k every month in my 20s.
Yeah. But it's like a yes and. But that $300 in your 20s also means a lot.
Yeah, but I've done I did the math once. I went back and I looked at the money I had spent in college. Like I had a college job, right? And I didn't invest any of that money. I just used it to buy shoes and milkshakes and silly things. And I did the math and I was like, okay, what if I invested half of it instead? And today it would be worth like $20,000, which sure,
Yeah.
that's great, but like that's not moving the needle for me at this point as much as. So I'm just saying it's okay. Like if you feel pressure, if you're like, oh my gosh,
Yeah.
everyone says I'm supposed to do it so early, but I don't really like have this money to invest, then that's okay too.
Yeah. I will say you are a higher income earner now.
Right.
And so if you were, I'm just going to say like a teacher, right? Back to that example, that $20,000 would actually be quite meaningful because you're not, as a teacher, ever going to get like a $20,000 bonus or something like that.
Yeah.
So I think it's a yes and. I totally agree with you. I think so. Everything we talk about here it's so specific to your individual situation, right? And so
Right.
we're going to give you our thoughts and advice on things, and then you have to put on the filter of your specific situation.
Right. Exactly. That's really, again, the moral of the story is it depends, and there is like no one size fits all. I always think about, whenever you give the example of a teacher, I think about, oh, I'm forgetting her Instagram handle, but I follow a woman on Instagram. It's like So Savvy Sarah, something like that.
Oh.
And she always talks about, she's like, yeah, I'm a teacher and I make more than $100,000. Like in some places, being a teacher pays really well.
Yeah, that's awesome.
But anyways, which again is just me. It depends. If we ever rename the podcast, it's just going to be called It Depends.
Yeah. Money tips, it depends.
It depends. But yeah, don't listen to someone who tells you that you have time to save for retirement later. And oh, here's a fun one. Credit cards are bad. Credit cards are evil. Credit cards are a gateway drug to getting into more debt.
I like them being referred to as a gateway drug.
A gateway drug, is that like a very specific thing for people who grew up in the 90s?
I don't know, but I did
Gateway
read
drug.
that somewhere, that it is a gateway drug to debt.
Do people
Yeah.
still say gateway drug? Like,
Well, I don't know. I do talk to my teenagers a lot about drugs, but I don't think I've ever used the term gateway drug.
okay.
I'm just like, drugs will ruin your life.
That's what you say in that voice?
No, I don't use that voice.
I don't know. Credit cards, I actually think of credit card debt as like one of the worst kinds of debt. So what are credit cards even a gateway debt for? Like what's the worst debt after credit cards?
Well, I think it's just that they are a gateway to debt, not to
Oh,
a
I
specific
see.
type of debt. But I agree, credit cards are not, getting in debt on a credit card is 100% a money mishap. The part you should ignore is that all credit cards are bad, because it's that credit cards used irresponsibly are bad. So credit card interest rates are like 20% plus these days, and it is very hard to get caught up on your payments and debt when you are incurring what are like arguably, I'd say, predatory interest rates, but whatever, that's somebody's business, so I shouldn't say that. Those interest rates are paying for why I like using credit cards, which are if you can use a credit card responsibly, and which means to pay off your bill every single month, your entire bill, and never pay any interest to the credit card companies, they can actually be a very helpful tool because they're super convenient to use. You can earn points. I just booked a trip to Iceland, half of it for 5 tickets. 3 of those tickets were fully funded on Delta SkyMiles points. And I just use credit cards for my everyday expenses, and I auto pay my bill every month. Now, I'm in a very fortunate position to be able to do that. I realize not everyone can do that. And if you can't do that and don't want to use credit cards for the points and the other benefits that can come with them, I wouldn't suggest using credit cards because they can be a gateway drug to debt.
Just say no if you can't. If you can't
I'm
pay off.
picturing all the drug commercials from the mid-90s, late 80s,
Right.
mid-90s.
This is your brain on drugs.
Yeah.
The fried
eggs.
egg.
They're cooking eggs, yeah.
Yeah.
It always made me hungry when they did those commercials because I was like home alone because I was a latchkey kid and I was like, I'd like someone to make me some eggs right now.
I remember being a kid, like sitting next to my dad on the couch and that commercial came on. And I think my dad was trying to have like a parenting moment. And my parents are really great. So he's like, do you have any questions about drugs? And I didn't understand. I mean, I think I was like 6 or something. And so I was like, well, that's your brain on drugs. I said, if that's your brain on drugs, what's your foot on drugs? Furious. Like, I didn't understand.
Yeah. A commercial.
But he asked me if I had any questions, and I felt like I should come up with a question. I was like, oh, I should come up with like a good question here.
Did he answer that question?
What's another body part? I think he thought I was being sassy.
Oh.
But I wasn't. I was being sincere. I didn't understand. Anyways.
That's funny. I'm trying to picture what the answer to that would be. I think your foot would be okay for a while. You know, if you want a literal answer to the question.
If you put the drugs on your foot, nothing.
Well, actually, people do like shoot heroin and stuff between their toes.
Oh, really? Oh, no.
Okay, we should probably quit talking about this.
I have actually.
But I've just seen that in movies.
I don't know. I've never done drugs in my life, actually. And besides, like, Chardonnay.
That's impressive. Let's move on. Okay.
Okay. All right. Credit cards are not bad and evil. They're just a tool like anything else.
And we've got some episodes where we talk about the various benefits of credit cards, from points and miles to just other things like purchase protection and cell phone protection. I mean, I've gotten free cell phone repair with a deductible you have to pay through the fact that my cell phone bills are on my credit card. So there are a lot of benefits you can use, and we'll put a link in the show notes to some previous credit card episodes on this podcast and then also on Friends on Fire.
Yeah, you just have to know if it's right for you. They're not a no never. They're a use it carefully.
Yeah, responsibly. And know thyself, right?
Mm-hmm.
People, you should know if you can use it responsibly, and like you're going to have to manage yourself on that one.
Yeah, I agree. Oh, this is a good one. Okay. Bad advice from your uncle number 4.
This person has a lot of uncles.
Fine.
Let's throw a gunkle in. A gunkle's fun.
Yeah, from your aunt. We'll start with a gunkle. Next one can be from your aunt. Finances are private. We don't talk about money.
That's uncouth. We don't talk about money.
Yeah, that's rude, or
it's just not a topic we talk about. You know?
Yeah. Oh my gosh, can you imagine? I guess we should just stop doing this podcast.
I know, right? Yeah.
We're so rude.
This is literally why I started Friends on Fire and this podcast and Inside Out Money, was because I don't think people talk about money enough. And it's become like people are more willing to talk about like sex and politics and religion and like not their money. And there's so much benefit that comes from talking about your money. So talk about your money with everybody, you know?
Mm-hmm.
You don't need to like flaunt your money. I'm not saying walk around and be like, hey, let me show you how big my high yield savings account is. But have open conversations with people you care about and initiate them yourself.
Yeah, there's ways to talk about it. There's such a range of how you can talk about it, right? You don't want to go into a casual conversation like, hi, nice to meet you. Let me tell you my salary. That doesn't need to be how it is. But actually, Maggie, I was thinking about you. I thought you would appreciate this. The other day, I was talking to a really good girlfriend of mine who I've known forever. And a few months ago, we actually talked about money a lot. And she said, I've never tracked our expenses. And I was like, what? Because this is one of my like smartest, most successful I was just genuinely surprised because I think we are very similar in a lot of ways. And so I was really surprised that she'd never done it. And she said, well, there's just always money left over. So I just have never needed to do it. And we had a long conversation. And then I hadn't seen her in a little while. And I saw her this week and she said, hey, I started budgeting. And she was telling me, and I was like, I think you just started tracking your expenses. I think you're still not budgeting, which is totally fine. You don't need to. And she was just having these moments where she said, oh, yeah. And now I actually feel more comfortable spending money on some things that I had hesitated to spend money on. And I'm just feeling more comfortable knowing where our money goes. And I was like, that was almost in tears. I was like, that's amazing. This is so great. And that wouldn't have happened if we hadn't just been sort of casually having conversations about money along the way.
See, that's the real life benefits. And for what it's worth, I didn't start tracking my expenses until 2019 when Mike from Friends on Fire encouraged me to do it because we were talking about money for the same reason that your friend didn't, that I always had money left over. So I wasn't like, I didn't feel a need to budget, and it just wasn't in my, I was very focused on money and saving, but it just never crossed my mind to track what I had no idea what I spent in a year.
That is...
Yeah.
It's just so interesting to me because, again, I think you and I have a lot of similarities. And I started tracking our spending, pretty young. And it's just such an
in
ingrained...
your early 20s? Like how young?
Probably, I want to say I was like 25 or 26 maybe.
Okay. Yeah, that's young. That's good. It's impressive.
But it's just so, I'm like, well, how else would you do it? Like, how else do you live your life? You just live your life not knowing how much you spent on groceries 3 years ago in November?
You do. I lived that way for decades, and I actually did okay. But I agree it's much better to track it. I just no one ever told me because I wasn't having open conversations about money. Exactly. And so we are a big proponent, and sometimes you might need to be the one who starts the conversation. If people aren't having them around you, what I have found is once you are the one that starts talking about it, everybody else who's interested like comes out of the woodwork, right? And so don't be afraid to be the one who initiates this with friends, with family, and try it. You know, you might try it in some circles or with some friends and it doesn't really, you don't get a lot back. And then you might try it with others and they're like, oh my gosh. You know, and my biggest piece of advice on this one for where you start to try it is start the conversation in a way that is, you know, vulnerable from your point of view, but not going to throw someone else off. And so you don't walk up to one of your good friends and be like, how much money do you make? You might walk up and say, hey, do you know what your 401k is invested in? You know, or like, are you maxing out your 401k? You know, like something that is not going to be off-putting to the other person. Like start small and then build up how, you know, detailed you get with things and how much you share.
I think you could start even lower stakes. I'm in super reviewing the data from 2024 mode because I'm doing like 31 days of podcasting and every day is about reviewing something from 2024. And I'm trying not to let it spill over too much into my sort of in real life conversations because I fear I can become very tedious very quickly. But I was in the office this week and I started to say something like, oh, I was just reviewing my 2024 finances. And then what I did, because I was very much in mixed company, was I said, I was looking and I realized we spent 50% more on groceries in 2024 versus 2023. And like food spending, grocery spending is something everyone has to spend money on. It's something everyone feels comfortable talking about. It's a little bit less like you say 401k and some people like immediately are like, oh my God, like,
well, and they may not know. And then you're right. That is a little bit more like a medium advancedness versus you're right. What are you spending on groceries? What's your gas bill this month? Mine was so high. Like, you know,
right.
You could certainly start on like utilities and groceries and like commodities
or kids daycare and activities, that kind of stuff. And then you can kind of start talking, oh, I don't even know. I don't track. Oh, really? I use Monarch. It's so great. Do you want to?
Here's my referral code.
Exactly.
I just saw Monarch's doing a 50% off. I saw that on your Instagram. I didn't realize they're doing another 50% off. So that's awesome for your first year. That's like $50 off.
It is nice. And you can't, again, we sound like an infomercial, but you can stack. So if you use, someone DM'd me actually on Instagram and they were like, oh, I just listened to your episode about using Monarch Money and it convinced me to finally give it a try, but I feel bad because I'm using your link now instead of Mac.
Oh, don't
And I
feel
was
bad.
like, we neither of us care. We just want you to be
Yeah.
happy and to track your expenses.
Yeah, I agree. I'm not doing this for the Monarch referrals, so just pick
No, but
anyone's. But you should use somebody's.
you should use someone's, one, because they get a month free, and also because you actually get a better, when you use someone's referral code, you get a 30-day trial. If you just sign up on the website, you only get a 7-day trial.
Yeah.
So you basically get a month for free
Yeah.
by using someone else's.
It's the same thing on like Wealthfront and stuff. Like it's not just that we get something, you actually get something that you
Yeah.
otherwise wouldn't get. So you're
Right.
getting, 3 months of a higher interest rate, which is worth a lot of money. And so, yeah, most of the time, anytime we're providing a referral link, it's as much for you as it is. Yeah, we get a little something, but you also get something very nice. So.
Mm-hmm. But that can also be a way to talk about money with your friend, just talking about how you're tracking it, right? If you use something like
Yeah.
Monarch, if you use a spreadsheet, if it's the time of year you're looking back. I was just talking again to someone at work. I realized the way that my company would withhold taxes on bonuses was not what I thought. And that's very like neutral
Yeah.
territory that you can bring up.
Yeah, everybody's paying taxes.
Right.
I just remembered we actually did an episode with Friends on Fire that was called Friends Don't Talk About Money, but They Should. So if you need a little more motivation on that one, you can go listen to Friends on Fire episode 101.
I like it. All right. What's some bad advice that your neighbor's aunt's cousin gave you about renting?
This is one that I admittedly would not have agreed is bad advice until probably like the past 5+ years as I've gotten older. Because I also growing up thought like, oh, you need to buy a home. That's what you do, And people say, the money tip you should ignore is that renting is bad. Renting is not always bad. Renting can be a very good strategic decision depending on your circumstances, your lifestyle, how long you plan to stay in a city, the cost of living in the city, all sorts of things. But owning a home is incredibly expensive. The primary home that you live in is often not an investment decision. It's often a lifestyle decision. You're often trying to be in like a certain neighborhood, certain schools, something you're trying to be close to, whatever. And it's expensive. Like the cost of home ownership is significantly expensive between homeowners insurance and property taxes and, obviously, like repairs and all the things you have to do. Renting a home is a fixed price, and it often doesn't fluctuate heavily because you're not responsible for all of the repairs and for all of the taxes and all those other things, right? The landlord is dealing with that, and you have a fixed rent, and you can really budget and plan. And if you don't plan on staying in a city for a long time, renting a home can make a lot of sense. If there's a certain part of town you want to live in, if you just move to a city, I mean, there's so many times, long term even, when renting can be the right decision for somebody. And so I just don't think people should knock renting. It is not always a bad financial move, and home ownership is not the like creme de la creme of being successful in life from a, outside view or from a financial view.
Yeah. It's funny, the phrasing too, like renting isn't always bad. I would say renting is often a very good idea. Renting is often smart, and it is usually not a bad idea.
Yeah, I agree.
And it's what you were saying about the unexpected costs. When you have a mortgage, that's your minimum. That's the minimum cost to own your house that month. You might have bats in your attic. You might have plumbing go awry. You might have all kinds of things. When you rent, that's your maximum. That's like the max you're going to pay for that month, and there are no unexpected expenses. And there's lots of reasons it might make sense to rent if you're not planning on staying long term, or if you're new, if you're figuring out where you want to go. But also, if you take the difference, if owning a home is expensive, you have those additional costs to it, and you actually invest the difference, you can come out ahead financially renting.
Yeah.
It just depends on your market.
Yeah, totally. And yeah, I just think there's a lot of people growing up that have somebody whispering in their ear that they need to strive for home ownership. And, I just don't think that's true.
Yeah. I actually never wanted to own a home.
Really?
I have now. I have owned 3 different homes. But I always just thought, I was always kind of anti. I was like, it seems like a lot of work. It's really expensive. You can just rent, and then you can move whenever you want. You don't have to worry about the pipes.
Yeah.
Now I got roped in. I'm a sucker. Now I worry about pipes.
Yeah, me too. Pipes and bats and all sorts of things. Okay, well, that could be an entire episode on its own, but we'll move on.
Okay.
Related to housing, there are people who, again, we don't agree with this because these are the money tips we think you should ignore, but there are people who say that you should buy the biggest house you can afford. And that is bad advice, in my opinion.
This is okay, we've talked about aunts and uncles and your dad's friend. So I got this bad advice from a
mortgage
coworker.
broker? Oh,
From a
sorry.
coworker.
Okay.
Who actually, now that I think back, is also someone who was telling me about their whole life insurance policy and what an amazing deal
Don't
it
take
was.
any advice from somebody who has a whole life insurance policy. That's a
It's
tip
so
for you.
common. It's so
It is super common, by the way. And we're not gonna get into it here, so we'll put a link in the show notes to why you don't want a whole life insurance policy. Not the point of today's episode, though.
Yeah. But we were looking at a house that was going to be a little bit of a stretch for us to purchase at one point, and I was talking to a coworker about it, and she said, yeah, but you want to buy like the biggest house you can afford because the idea is that your income continues to grow and the mortgage stays the same, or actually the mortgage feels smaller because your mortgage doesn't rise with inflation, right? Whereas wages and other costs do. And I guess in the moment I was like, yeah, that makes sense. I should buy a house that's a stretch to afford.
I would argue that's like a gamble. Like she's assuming she's going to make more money, and she's gambling on,
right.
And again, I hope she did, and I hope she had a successful career. But
yeah,
again, like owning a home is incredibly expensive, and I prefer the advice of like, buy the least expensive house in a neighborhood.
Yeah.
Like, because then it's just it's gonna continue to like appreciate well.
Yeah. What's the saying? Buy like the cheapest house in the nicest neighborhood.
Yeah.
Do you think that's good advice?
Not the nicest neighborhood. I'd say buy one of the less expensive houses in a nicer neighborhood, not the nicest, because I don't live in the nicest neighborhood I could live in. And I'll put it this way, if I had bought the biggest house I could afford in the nicest neighborhood, I wouldn't be early retired right now.
Yeah. But if you had bought the smallest house in a nice neighborhood,
in the nicest neighborhood, I wouldn't be early retired.
Okay.
I couldn't have I couldn't even have I wouldn't have been approved for a loan at the time. I mean, maybe I would have, because they were approving people for loans well beyond what they could afford. But yeah, no, I'm not a fan of that advice.
All right.
But again, it depends.
It depends on what neighborhood you want to live in.
Yeah. And I think a lot of things in life, depend on your situation. And I give, this is probably like questionable advice, but I do give people this advice all the time. When you're making some of these kind of gambles, which I don't know if gamble is the right word, but like you're hoping that something works out. You're hoping that you get that bonus next year, whatever it is. And you're sort of, you're cashing a check before you have it, right? You're spending money before you have it. Cashing a check's not the right word. You're spending money before you have it, hoping that something will work out in your favor in the future. You can do that if you have a lot of things to fall back on in life, right? And you come from a place, I would say, of privilege, right? And I'll put myself in that category, right? I don't come from a place of massive privilege, but I do come from a place of plenty of privilege compared to many things in this world. And so I know that if I default on my mortgage and lose my house, I have a place to go. It might not be where I want to go, but like my mom would take me in, my brother would take me in, Yeah. And like there are other people that don't have anywhere to go.
Yeah.
And so you have to make decisions based on the reality of the support network you have in life also. And again, I'm not saying you should go do like risky things and be like, well, I can always fall back on my parents or something, especially if my kids are listening. I just think you want to this is why it's all like, personal finance. Like you need to, take into account the reality of your situation. You seem like you disagree. Oh no. I'm reading your face. No one else can read her face, but I can.
No, I agree that that's true. I think you and I both come from actually a pretty massive place of privilege. I mean, not like trust fund levels, but
yeah,
but there's still like a lot of backup there, I would say.
Yeah, I agree.
And that's an interesting way to think about it. I mean, again, the moral of the story is like nothing is thumbs up, thumbs down, just like it's a yes or it's a no, but it is nuanced. And depending on how many sort of quote backup plans you have, that might change how much risk you're willing to take.
Yeah.
Right. So, and that might look like, oh, I can stay with my parents, or how hireable I am, or does my
Exactly.
partner also have like a good paying job, or like, is my neighborhood the kind of place where you can easily sell a home if you kind
need
of
it
get into
too.
trouble. There's just like a bunch of different pieces that go into it. That's why that's why a lot of advice is bad, because any advice that's like, this is what you should do 100% of the time is probably not good advice.
I totally agree. Yes.
Yeah. Sorry if I was making a disagree face. That's
No.
just my thinking face.
It was your thinking face. It's okay. You're here to think, so make that face.
I say that to people at work all the time. I'm like, you're making a question face. And they're like, oh, yeah, in meetings. Okay. Oh, here's some terrible advice. You should, if you want to be able to afford that house, you want to be able to buy a house, just skip your lattes.
Yeah. Skipping lattes is the path to saving money and being financially successful.
I love when people like actually do the math. They're like, let's just say about 3 lattes a day, every day, 365 days a year. Are you doing it?
Yeah, I'm about to, because the price of lattes has really gone up lately. Like, I like a mocha latte lately from Starbucks.
Yeah.
And it's like $8.
That's a lot of money for...
So...
Yeah, I feel like $5 Starbucks cards used to be kind of a currency. Like, we would have them at... Like, I would bring them into a meeting at work, and anybody who asked a question would get a $5 Starbucks card, or sometimes just as a quick thank you with a thank you note, we'd include a $5 Starbucks card. And I'm like, now you got to do 10.
You got to do 10.
You can't even get a drink with $5.
I just yesterday was like the assistant at the orthodontist place like did us a big favor and like got something ready same day, and we had to go back, and I was at Starbucks to kill some time while we were waiting for this new retainer to be made, and I went to get a gift card, and I was like, well, I got to put $10 on it because you can't get a drink for under 10, you can't get a drink for $5 anymore unless you just want a black coffee.
And you can't give a gift card for $8. That's weird.
Yeah. I gave her a $10 gift card. She was really happy and very thankful. I don't think anyone's ever handed her a gift card before. Also, can I just like on the latte point, and then this is just a suggestion for those who can afford it. Just buy some like Starbucks gift cards and carry them around with you. Because I also gave one to the like attendance lady in the front office at our middle school. Oh. Who I'm there a lot lately because of the orthodontist.
Okay.
And various doctor's appointments. Like, I just feel like I'm there like once a week. And I gave her one at Christmas because I feel like the teachers all get stuff. And like, we had given our teachers gifts.
Yeah, yeah.
But it's like, I just think there's some like certain office staff. And I know that like PTA does gifts for everybody. But I know parents also give incremental things to like their teachers and people they deal with every day. And I was like, I bet nobody gives her anything. And I don't think they did, because she was so thankful. She like invited me. There's like a place you wait for kids. And yesterday she like invited me into like her office to wait. And I was like, I don't even want to be, I feel like I'm in trouble or something. But she was so nice. And then she was like talking to me about the storm coming. She was a different person than the way she had been to me before. And I wasn't doing that to buy her love. I was just doing it to be nice. But like, she was just so sweet and like, which just reminds me, like, be nice to people,
Here's some good advice from Maggie Tucker. Just be really nice to people.
Just be nice to people. Just be kind.
Just try being nice to people.
I mean, I know you're being serious, half joking. Not joking.
I am being serious.
No, I know you're being serious, but I mean, I will say, like, ever since I have noticed since I have been early retired and I just have less stress in my life, I am nicer to people out and about in the world. Like, I'm less impatient. I'm not annoyed when something's delayed, and I'm just like nicer, and I kind of chit chat with people like at the front desk at the orthodontist and like wherever I am. Again, I just spend a lot of time with the orthodontist, and I've been there 4 times this week. No joke.
Amazing.
And I just noticed that like it is incredibly like disarming, and people aren't friendly enough to each other, because when I'm like extra friendly to people, they're so nice, and they'll like turn around. Like it's like they weren't friendly in the beginning of this interaction, and by the end they're incredibly friendly, which just makes me think people are so kind of just busy and short. And like, I get it, because I was once that person, but it's one of the things I like am very noticing in retirement, that I have more time to engage with people when I'm just like at the Target checkout or at and I really like it. And I have these like little moments with human beings that I otherwise would not have paid close enough attention to.
I haven't been to an orthodontist ever, but
You have very nice teeth, given that statement.
That was a qualifier. Considering.
Oh, sorry. No. You have nice teeth regardless. Sorry, I should clarify. Your teeth aren't really that fucked up.
Wow, they're kind of like shockingly not terrible considering you.
No, they look nice. Either way, I don't know how to say
But
it
I'm
now.
trying to think of like, I've been to a physical therapist, I don't know, 1,000 times in my life. And when I feel like I'm going from work, right? Like I'm leaving work. I'm going there. I've blocked my calendar for like an hour and 15 minutes for this 30-minute appointment. Like I'm trying to find a parking spot. I'm going in. When I'm sitting in the waiting room, this is my actual point. I'm like on my phone because I'm trying to answer 3 work emails while I sit there and like catch up on, Slack or Teams notifications. And so I think I was just trying to say that you in early retirement, you got like all the time in the world because you're not trying to keep up with work all the time, both mentally and just physically looking at messages.
Yeah, I mean, it's completely that. I sit there and I'm like looking around in the waiting room like a little kid. I mean, sometimes I do get on my phone, but I don't feel an urge to. And I try to just like sit there and like be present for a minute. Like, just be nice to people.
That's great.
Okay, we were talking about lattes. I did do the math.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
And even my $8 latte, if I got 5 a week for 50 weeks, taking a couple weeks of vacation from lattes, so I did 50 weeks, not 52, that's $2,000 a year.
Yeah.
So again, that's the point. $2,000 isn't nothing.
Right.
But it's also likely not the thing that is keeping you from your, it's probably the house you chose to live in and the amount of your mortgage and the car you drive and some of these other things. Honestly, even what grocery store you shop at, right, could have a bigger impact than the latte. So we're not saying don't ever skip a latte. We're just saying the advice that like skipping your lattes is going to, be the difference between you like early retiring and not early retiring or, fixing. There's a lot of larger financial habits to address first.
Yeah. It's a cliche and it's a bad cliche for a reason.
It is a cliche, yeah.
So
I will say on that note, I am trying to get less lattes this year. I got a little loose.
Fewer lattes.
Fewer lattes. Thank you.
I did. Sorry, I did.
Thank you. You have great grammar and beautiful teeth.
I'm sorry. I wasn't trying to correct your grammar. You just kind of paused. You were like, I'm trying to get, and then I had started to say fewer lattes, and then you said less lattes.
Tell me what to say. You're good with words. I'm not even joking.
Sorry.
I'm not even joking. I don't mind it.
I think I'm trying to drink more lattes. Actually, when you were talking about it, I was like, oh, I haven't even been to a coffee shop one time this year. And
But local lattes? Or...
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
I don't see. Speaking of, well, yeah, I like spending money at my local coffee shops, and I was looking at because I'm obsessed with recapping 2024, and I love Monarch Money because I love that cash flow view, and it told me that I spent I think $700 at coffee shops and $100. It was about $100, maybe it was $110 or $120 at Starbucks, and the rest at local coffee shops. And you don't know, you don't have that kind of data at your fingertips if you don't track your spending obsessively for years.
Bear with me for a moment, but we didn't get into this in the expense tracking episode because we just had a lot of people to cover.
Yeah.
But I want to see what I spent. I meant to go check what I spent in Starbucks in last year, what Greg and I spent at Starbucks, because between us and the kids, it just got to be like a little bit of a...
That's a lot.
Yeah, a lot. But I bet it's not... I mean, it didn't come up in my top vendor report, so it's probably not even as bad as I think. Why can't I? What do I click on, Liz?
You go to cash flow.
Okay, cash flow. Thank you.
And then you change it up at the upper top right. You change it to the year.
Okay, yearly.
Because it probably defaults to month. And then you have to, usually mine defaults to the current year, so you have to go back to 2024. And then there's 3 tabs. So it's category, group, and then I think it's called merchant.
Why would I am like in cash flow? Are you sure it's not in reports? It's not showing me. Oh wait, I've got it in reports now. When I go to cash flow, I don't see what you just said.
I usually look at it in the app, but let me look on
that
the
might be
website. Cash flow, yearly.
Where do you get to buy?
2020. No, that's exactly what it's exactly what I said.
Wait, cash flow.
Okay, so you go to cash
yearly?
flow.
Okay.
Hang on, my mouse just decided to be weird. And then you go to yearly, right? And then you click on that little bar that takes you to 2024.
Oh.
And then see how it says income and then expenses.
Yeah,
and then
merchant.
you can category, group, or merchant.
That's an income. Okay, here we go. Merchant. Starbucks. What do you think it is? It's not as bad as I thought.
372.
No. Oh, wait, 372? Sorry, I thought you were saying 3,000.
No.
Well, it's not as bad.
$3,000. Whoa.
It was $1,425.
Wow. That surprises me only because what I know of you, you don't like to like eat out. And so
No, I do like to eat out. I mean, I try not to eat out, but I like to eat out sometimes. But the thing is, I really
no,
like
you like to buy food and you like to bring it home and you like to sit on your couch and watch it while you watch TV.
That's my
and you don't like to
preference.
start eating it until the TV show started.
I will not. You're correct. I will not start till the show started.
Oh, mine was 104, to be fair.
Oh, but that was at Starbucks, not your
Yeah.
local coffee shop. What's your total
Correct.
coffee?
It was like 700.
Okay. Well, yeah. So yes. So my 1425. The point is, my 1,400. I want to spend less in 2025 than I spent in 2024. The number, probably the top 10 places I need to spend less are not Starbucks. Right?
Yeah.
I have 10
Yeah.
things that are bigger, worse problems than that problem. So I'm not. Again, it's all relative, but like we're just saying, like you want to actually look at all of your expenses and focus on your bigger ones first, and
Right.
prioritize what you want to cut and give up, because I'm actually okay spending $1,400 a year right now on that.
Yeah. And you might not be. Like, I actually remember, okay, again, going back to when I was at my very first job and I used to go get Starbucks every day on my way to work. And it was a little bit of a like, I'm an adult professional lady. Like, look at me getting my coffee and going to work. I'm in my little outfit.
You probably had a nice cup too.
I did have some nice
Nice
cups.
cups, yeah.
And at that point, though, when I was making like $30,000 a year, if I cut $2,000 a year, that's significant money. Starbucks wasn't that expensive then because it was
Yeah.
back in the dark ages. But that's meaningful money. If I didn't go out and buy my lunch every day for $8 to $10, like that was meaningful money. Again, like it's all relative, right? Maggie, we just did the episode, so you spent more than $100,000 last year total for like your whole life and your kids and everything.
Yeah.
And so cutting $1,000 from Starbucks like isn't really, that's less than 1%.
Yeah. It didn't even make my, top 10, 15 categories or merchants.
Right.
So instead, my kids will not play volleyball next year, but I'll go to Starbucks. I'm just joking.
That would be
Got
quite
some other things I'm
quite
gonna cut.
the shift.
And I'm already doing okay. I'm only 3 weeks into the. Oh no, it's only the 10th. Damn, I'm only 10 days into the year, but I've been trying really hard. Been trying real hard. Okay, let's move on.
All right. Who gave you? Let's see. Your coworker's friend's sister told you.
Your cousin. Let's throw
Your
some cousins in
cousin?
there.
Oh,
We got a lot of
yeah.
cousins. Your cousin said,
Investing is only for the uber wealthy.
"Yeah."
Did someone
That's
say
not
that
true.
to you?
No, but I think there was a time when I thought like investing was only for wealthy people. I didn't grow up understanding or knowing anything about the stock market. My parents didn't
Yeah.
have money in the stock market outside of they didn't really even have like 401ks at their jobs. So they had one
Yeah.
pension. One of them had a
Yeah,
pension, one of
same.
them was self-employed. Yeah, there was no discussion of like investing in my house growing up.
I think even just when I think about the word investing, I'm similar. I thought that you kind of needed like a good chunk of money to invest in a business because most of my context around investing came from working at tech startups. So we would talk about like our investors.
Yeah.
And that's what I thought investing was like selecting a business, like one business of someone you know,
Yes.
and being like, I'm going to invest in your
Give them all
business.
and to give them a large sum of money, right?
Right,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, but no, investing is, we've done a ton of episodes on investing, so we will put some links in the show notes to them. But it is a huge misconception that you need any sort of significant wealth to start investing. You literally need like $10 to start investing in most, not even that amount. To open an investment account, you don't need anything. And the minimums are quite low. I don't even know exactly what they are. Let's see. What's the minimum amount you need to open? $1. There is no minimum deposit to open a Fidelity brokerage account. This means you can start investing with as little as $1. And I bet if I check Vanguard, it's going to be the same. Minimum investment amount for Vanguard's ETFs, $1. There are certain mutual funds that might have a minimum investment amount, but to buy a low-cost index fund, which is what we normally recommend, a total market fund, you could start with $1. You could start putting in $10 a week, $10 a month. I've already started investment accounts, minor investment accounts for my kids that will automatically transfer to them when they turn 18. And we'll put small amounts of money in it here and there.
Mm-hmm.
Yesterday at the dentist, they were getting a dental cleaning and they give them these stupid bouncy balls that are like big. They're like the kind that like break crap in your house.
Oh, no.
And it's like it's always the toy they pick. And they're all bouncing them in the waiting room. And it's so annoying because there's like video games. And there's just like the TV's on. There's video. Greg and I both were like, oh my God, there's so many noises playing in this waiting room right now. I told each of my kids I'd give them $20 into their investment account if they would quit bouncing the ball. I do that. And then right away they held that ball. They like held on to it. I tell my kids all the time, I'll throw out like just something stupid that I need them to do or want them to stop doing. And I'll put money in their investment account. So
That's funny.
that
sounds like a parenting book waiting to be written.
I've told you I think I made a video once where I'm like, I'll be at the mall with my kid and they like they'll hold my hand not in public, but like as soon as we get in the mall, they're like, don't touch me.
Yeah.
And I said, I'll buy you more stuff if you hold my hand. And my daughter like immediately grabs my hand. And I was like, parenting tips 101.
Yeah, that's funny. Well, because again, from their perspective, okay, you know how we were just talking about like $1,000 doesn't move the needle because your overall expenses are more than $100K. So their expenses are zero. So like $20.
$20 is like a lot to them.
Infinity money to them. Yeah, that's funny.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay. So yeah. And obviously we don't need to like, we'll restate the obvious here, but like the power of compound interest, you want to start investing as much as you can as early as possible. So even small amounts, they will add up. So, again, it's not just for the super wealthy. Anybody can start investing and you should if you haven't already.
Right. And that brings us to our next piece of terrible advice from, I got this from a coworker.
Everybody.
I'm throwing all my coworkers out. I'm like, they're very smart at other things. They're really smart at like marketing and finance and account management.
They don't work in financial planning. So
right. So you do not need a financial advisor to start investing. A coworker sent me to their financial advisor and he tried to sell me whole life insurance.
Look, we can't go down this rabbit hole right now. So we will refer you to episode 58, where we talk about how you should break up with your financial planner or advisor if you have a percentage-based one and why and how to do it. But ultimately, you don't need a financial advisor to invest. And most people can and should be investing on their own with a simple brokerage account and low-cost total market index funds.
Yeah. I get grouchy about this. And I was actually I was in the office this week and I can't stop talking about money because that's me. And I was talking to someone about filing our tax return. And the person asked me, oh, do you do your own taxes? And I was like, yeah, I do. And we just started talking about how most people can file their own taxes. And they just think that they're not smart enough. And it's the same with investing. Like you think that it's this complicated thing that you can't do without professional help. And there's a whole industry built around trying to get you to think that. Yeah. But you actually can't. You're so smart and you're so capable. And if you want to outsource to someone else your taxes or your investing and you understand what you're paying for, like great. But
well, and it's not complicated though. I mean, even when you say you're so smart and there's people who are going to think, but I'm not smart in that category, it's not complicated.
Right.
It is more, like you said, there's an entire industry and people whose job it is to convince you it's complicated because they want you to pay them to manage your money. And again, you got to go listen to episode 58 because we're not going to do it justice here this quickly, but you don't need it. And if you do want to hire someone, hire an hourly financial coach or advisor. Mm-hmm. We can give you a link to Nectarine. We'll put in the show notes, which is a good place to find one. And
I tried Nectarine. I secret shopped them.
We'll actually put a link in the show notes to your episode where you talk about your secret shopping of Nectarine.
I see. I was like, hello, I do not know what I'm doing with my money. Can you please help me?
Did you do it with that like voice and inflection? Hello,
yes, I did.
I am not Liz Gets Loaded. No, that is not me.
I definitely don't have a podcast
and Instagram account about this. I'm not in love with HSA. What's an HSA? Oh my God, I actually would have like paid to be on that call with you where you just played like...
I didn't really. I was just like, I was normal. But next time I'm going to put on like a hat and glasses.
That would be like a whole nother podcast. It'd be like the reality shows where they're like, going in. I can't think of the name of any of them now, but we could do that for financial, just for Nectarine, where all we do is go in and like do funny skits with.
We just secret shop Nectarine, poor Nectarine advisors.
But we should actually do it with financial advisors, like real financial advice, like the percentage based ones where we talk about, we're like, oh, whole life insurance. So tell me about, and like,
Yeah.
Okay. That's
like how much commission do you make?
I don't know if I have the energy for that in my life, but
we go in with like we're people on House Hunters. We're like, hi, I make artisanal cat beds, and this is my partner Maggie. She is a circus choreographer, and we
artisanal cat beds. That was better than the circus choreographer, but that actually sounds like a fun job.
And we are looking to invest our money. Can you help us?
Oh my God.
Okay.
Artisanal cat beds. That's like the best thing you've said in like years, Liz. Oh my God. And you say a lot of funny stuff. That was like really good. Like, where did you just come up with artisanal cat beds? Like, that's awesome.
Know.
Okay. On the note of artisanal cat beds, let's do our final money tip that we think you should ignore.
This is a real one I got from a coworker when I was originally...
Like recently?
No,
Okay.
It was right when I was... So the first time I had like real money to invest outside of my 401k and IRA, because I felt comfortable with that. But I had sold a house, and so I had like a really good sized chunk of cash, and I didn't know what to do with it, and I was trying to figure it out. And can I tell you, I was Googling it, and I was like, maybe I should buy a laundromat. Like, this is...
Sounds like, God, what's the name of the... Walt, who owns the laundromat? Breaking Bad.
Oh, wow. Well, I just Googled, like, what should I do with X amount of dollars, and, like, how can I invest this much money? And it was literally like, oh, you could buy a laundromat, like, you could do all these things. And then I eventually decided to put it in the stock market. I just like, purely stumbled into that choice, kind of by luck. And I was feeling nervous about it. And my coworker was like, yeah, just put it all in the stock market. And I was like, well, what if the market crashes? Like, it's been so high. What if it all drops? And she goes, you're going to know. It'll, like, be in the news.
Oh my
Like,
God.
if the market starts to go down, it'll be in the news, and then you just pull your money out.
Oh my God.
And as silly as that advice was, it did make me feel better. And I was like, okay, I'll do it. And then I figured things out later.
Well, sometimes bad advice can turn into, like, you took the first part of the advice, you know?
Yeah. So just to put a point, I don't think I actually said what the advice was. The advice that you will hear often is just buy low and sell high. That's all you got to do in the market. Buy low, sell
Yeah.
high.
Man,
Done.
I wish it was that easy, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, but, like, one of the things you should never do is try to time the market. Like, it's a big no-no. And I give you my own, you know, I know this advice, and I don't believe in the buy low. So, I mean, obviously, if I could predict the future, of course I want to buy low and sell high. The point is, you cannot try to time the market. It's just not possible. You could certainly get lucky, but there's a ton of data that shows, like, even the smartest financial minds cannot. I mean, even Warren Buffett says this, right? You cannot try to... You won't beat the market, right? And so, again, we've got whole episodes, and we'll put links in the show notes where we talk about this in more detail. But I'll give an example. On top of me already knowing this, I'll still, like, I've been sitting on some cash since I left work because I was like, well, I need to hold some extra cash because I'm early retired. And I'm like, you know, the market had been at such a high, and I want to put in this extra bunch of cash when things really drop. I want to buy all the stocks on sale. I've been sitting on that money for 2 years now, and there's been, you know, 50 to 60% growth over that time. Mm-hmm. And it's just another anecdotal example of, like, why you don't try to time the market. I should have just dollar cost averaged that money into the market.
Yeah, that makes sense. It really is. It's like a hard thing. It's an incredibly hard thing to do. And as much as someone like you or me has internalized this idea that you don't want to time the market, like, it's really hard not to do it. It's really hard not to get tempted when the market dips to be like, oh, let me see if I can buy some more. Let me save some cash to do that. Like, let me, you know, U.S. stocks have been so high. I don't want to be an international because, like, this has been doing so well. I read an article that I thought was so interesting. I'll try to find it. And is it even people who do this full time for a living, even people who trade stocks professionally, tend to be pretty good at knowing when to buy, but they're terrible at knowing when to sell.
Yeah.
And if those people can't do it, then I can't do it.
Yeah. And I mean, Andrew and I do a lot of episodes about investing and on this podcast. And again, we'll put links in the show notes, but the stress and the, like, it's like all the data shows, like, you can't do it and you're not going to beat the total market performance over the long term. But the stress of trying to carry that expectation is also just not worth it, right? Like, the simplicity of saying, you know, that's the whole thing of, like, the simple path to wealth is investing as much and as early as possible and letting it ride in a total market index fund. And trying to mentally think about it is just taxing, and it's like not what you want to spend your time doing.
Oh my gosh, it's so stressful. I owned a good chunk of stock, and I think this happened to you too, in a company that I used to work for. And I knew I wanted to get out of it because, one, I don't want to be a person who owns individual stocks. It was like a, fraction of my net worth. And maybe like 10% of my net worth in this one stock, which I didn't feel comfortable with in general. And it had been like highly underperforming to the market. And choosing the day to sell it was just exhausting because it had been higher and I was like, I should wait for it to go higher. And then every day I would look and I was like, well, what if it goes up tomorrow? And I just sold it. I'm going to be so sad. And then even after selling it, I couldn't help myself from just looking and like, did I make a mistake? And I will tell you right now, it's flat. I mean, almost a year later. So good job, self. But
it's hard. It's a mindset thing, right? Like it is so psychological. And I just sold all of the IHG stock I had left over, like 2 weeks. I sold it like on December 30th because I wanted it to hit last year.
Yeah.
And it had appreciated. I mean, it had grown a massive amount because some of it was, very old, and the stock had done like shockingly well, right? And I say shocking, like it had outperformed like the overall market, which is, I don't want to own an individual stock, but it was like nice to, part of you is like, oh, should I keep it? It's been outperforming, but like
exactly.
I don't expect that to happen. It's like, it's almost like mentally I had to tell myself like, walk away. It's great. That's great that I've had this benefit. I believe in investing in the total market, so I want to get out of this individual stock, which is the only reason I sold it, is because I want it to be in the total market. And I didn't even think about the time or the day. I was just like, I got to get rid of it. I'm looking at the overall long-term growth. I'm zooming out. I'm not zooming into like, is it going to be better today or tomorrow? I was like, I'll forget to do it tomorrow, and it's the last day of the year, so I'm going to do it right now.
Well, you didn't have a lot of time to choose.
I did.
This was like
well, I did because I had been thinking about it for like months, right?
Yeah,
and
but
dragging my feet on it. But it wasn't around the price, and it was more just saying like, I think you got to like zoom out and just look at like your overall growth and appreciate that,
right?
And not try to like micromanage. Will I make another $100 or thousands of dollars if I get another $1 a share or something?
Right.
But that's hard to do, is my point. And
it's really hard to do.
Right?
And so just
our brains
make your life
want to
easier.
optimize things. Yeah. You got to like, it's almost like Andrew talks about, you got to let go of the desire. I like that we should sing. We should
just
make sure
break out
a
into
goal
song.
to sing in every Let It Go. Are you singing Frozen?
Yeah. I set a goal this year. I haven't told anybody this, but I want to write a song, like a whole song in 2025. Maybe I'll write a song about insight over money. I haven't decided. It can be about anything.
Atlanta. Okay, my kid's gonna kill me, but can I tell you something?
Yes.
This will be our wrap-up story.
I hope you don't get murdered.
What?
You just said your kid was going to kill you. I was just making a joke.
I was like, what does this have to do with murder?
You're the one who said killing.
I know. I already forgot I said that. But thank you. I hope I don't. So I'm going to wrap something for you, but I'm going to tell you where it came from, okay? So one of my kids, yesterday I had to take my daughter to an orthodontist appointment for a new retainer, and then to a dentist appointment like 2 hours later. And we had some time to kill in between, but they're both like literally like 3 minutes away from each other and like far from our house. So I was like, we're going to go to Starbucks and we're going to sit. I have some work to do. And she was going to work on some school assignments on her laptop. So we're sitting at Starbucks and she's telling me, she's like, oh, I have this assignment. Will you help me with it? And it's in this app called Lyric Lab. But she basically has to write a song, and they even play a beat for you at the end to like say it out loud. And I don't know. I only have part of it because I took a picture of it and it wasn't scrolled down. But you also have to use it has like a built-in little rhyming dictionary.
Oh,
and
that's clever.
And it had 10 vocabulary words that she had to use. This was kind of like a vocabulary. It's exercise.
Okay. This was
and one of the words was financial. It was all about goals. And so I was like, oh my gosh, I would love to help you write this rap about financial goals. So I was like, oh my gosh, yes, I would love to help you write a poem lyrics about, financial goals. So can I rap this to you real quick? Okay. There's no beat here, but
I can't wait.
Okay.
And
then we started rapping it repeatedly, and I was like, oh, can I just take a picture of this? And she was like, no, you cannot post this. And I was like, okay, fine. But she didn't say I couldn't rap it on the podcast.
And she doesn't listen, right? So she's never going to know.
She probably won't listen to this one. It makes me so happy when I set a goal. It allows me to measure and practice some control. I keep them realistic and I make a plan. And if it's specific, I know that I can. It has to be timely so I can make my deadline. And if I use this method, my goals will stay in line. My goal can be financial or related to my health, but it can't be vague or I'll never grow my wealth.
Oh.
Boom. That's pretty good, right?
That was really good.
I mean, me and a 7th grader wrote that in like 5 minutes at the Starbucks.
Oh my gosh.
And we got all 10 vocabulary words in there.
Wow.
And a positive message about setting goals and building wealth.
Wow. I feel like you're training my backfill.
I just recorded an episode with her.
What?
She asked me to, it'll go live.
Oh my gosh.
It might go live before this, actually.
I can't wait. That's amazing.
Asked me on like New Year, like something weird, something I was doing over the holidays. And she was like, she always wants to come like mess with my mic. And she was like, I want to do an episode with you. And I was like, I would love to do an episode with you. What? And then we started brainstorming and she was like really focused. She was like, when are we going to record this? And what are we? I mean, she lost a little focus on the detailed show notes part, but because I was like, we need a plan. But we did a whole episode about social media and its influence on purchases.
That's so cool.
Which is something she's well adept on because she is on social media and is constantly like, will you buy me this? I saw it on TikTok Shop. And I'm like, no. And so we did a whole episode together and it was a very interesting experience.
That's amazing. That's really cool. I really liked, I think all the time about the episode you did on Friends on Fire where you interviewed each other's kids. Yeah.
It was Kids Are the Best, part 1 and part 2. Okay. They're also expensive. Yeah. That wasn't in the title, but it was kind of, I think maybe we did a different one that was called Kids Are Expensive.
Okay. That's great. And that seems like what am I trying to say? Like she's old enough to know, to understand that this gets posted publicly and it's a podcast you recorded ahead of time and it's edited.
Yeah.
Like it's a very sort of safe way to foray into this.
And I can let her listen to it before it goes live.
Right.
And make sure she's okay. I haven't actually edited it yet, but it's going to require a lot of editing. Just so you know. There was a lot of giggling going on.
I think you leave it in.
Oh gosh. It was so much though. Like,
okay.
But I will definitely leave some of the giggling in, but there was so much of it that like, it was just, you'd be sitting there listening to someone like giggle for like a minute.
Okay.
And me being like, okay, I'm going to need you to pull this together.
Okay.
You to pull it together.
I was like, what if you edited out all of our giggling? That would be so weird.
It would not be. Yeah. It would take the joy out of this.
It would be a very short episode.
Okay.
That's so fun. Oh my gosh. I can't wait to hear that. Okay. Well, I guess by the time listeners hear this, they will have already heard that, but we're in a time machine.
Sometimes, Liz, I try to track back how we got on a certain topic. And I was like, wait, how did we get to... And then I was like, oh, we started doing the rap because you were singing Let It Go. Oh. So then I told you about the rap. And then I told you about how we record. Okay. Because I'm like, I really will try to... I'm like, how did I get here?
How did we get here
from here?
How the hell?
I do...
That's from Rent.
Oh, I was thinking of the song... from like, this was like popular when I was in high school. How did we get... It was like Shania Twain. How did we get here from here? I want to know.
How do I get there from here? I feel like I know that one.
No, we get here. Hold on.
I was thinking Rent. How did we get here? How the hell? It's Christmas Eve last year.
I don't remember. I wouldn't remember a song from Rent, but I did.
Oh my gosh. I listened to the Rent soundtrack over and over and over again.
Okay, I don't even know why I'm looking for this song. I'm going to get off this. Okay. I think we did it. We did this and some more, you know?
It really... I feel like at the beginning we were like, listen, here's what you need to know about debt and da-da-da. And at the end, and I was like, I could feel it. I was like, we need to warm up. It's a little early. And then by the end, I was like, there we are.
And I was like, I want to go play in the snow. But then I was like, oh, it's more fun to talk to you in the warm house.
All right, go play in the snow.
Okay, well, we appreciate you guys listening.
Oh, yeah.
I know you don't all appreciate it because we have gotten a review, Liz, that says we have too much chit-chat at the beginning and to just get into it. So we tried to do that today and save our chit chat for the end.
We've been doing better at that, about
I think so.
getting right into it and then chit chat to the end.
Yeah. So if you're
we're
happy
growing.
with that, go leave us a review and let us know that we're doing a better job, or that you love our chit chat. If you like our chit chat, please go leave us a review that you like our chit chat, because it'll make up for the review that said they don't want to hear our chit chat. Which makes
I'm okay
us
if someone
sad.
doesn't want to. Yeah, you can. Here's an idea. You
Some
could
people
go.
love our chit chat, Liz.
Some people do like
It's
it,
not
and some
chit
people
chat.
don't. That's
Chit
okay.
chat like demeans it, you know. It's like
Well,
real
Yeah, this is real.
conversation. This
real
is
shit.
real. This is real. This is important stuff, guys.
You could leave a review and tell us how you feel about the singing. It's okay if you don't like the singing.
Yeah. Tell me how you felt about that rap.
I loved it.
Not you, I mean in a review, someone else.
I know.
Oh, okay.
I know.
But thanks for telling me again. We liked it. Anyways, we really appreciate you spending some time with us. Maybe you want to share this episode with somebody. That'd be cool.
That you should share
Yeah.
it with your coworker, uncle, aunts, friends, cousin who.
Well, we said you should talk about money, so a good way to get started is to send this to somebody and be like, hey, let's talk about these money tips that we should ignore. And anyways, if you have any thoughts or questions, we'd love to hear from you. You can leave us a voicemail. You can text us at 404-981-3370, or you can hit us up on Instagram. I'm at Inside Out Money. Liz is at Liz Gets Loaded. And we mentioned a ton of other episodes in this, so we'll put all the links in the show notes.
All right, I think we did it.
We did do it. We did it and then some.
Inside out.
Out of here, insiders.
Inside outie.
Bye-bye.
Bye.